I stood before my mother-in-law's house with a hammering heart, intending to check on my husband who was supposedly sick. But before I could even knock, my sister-in-law suddenly blocked my path. Her face was pale, her hands trembling as she whispered frantically for me to go to the back door and keep my arrival a secret. "This is for your own safety," she said. I didn't have a chance to ask why before my eyes caught something inside the house. In that instant, my breath caught in my throat, my knees went weak, and I realized my arrival was no coincidence. A great secret was waiting for me, and from that moment on, my life would never be the same again. Hello, how is everyone doing? I hope you are all healthy and blessed with good fortune. Thank you for stopping by the Life Has a Story channel. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and write in the comments where you're from. Okay, here's the story. The blue light from the still active laptop screen contrasted sharply with the darkness of the hotel room on the 12th floor. Amara Reed let out a long sigh, adjusting the glasses that had started to slide down the bridge of her nose. The hands on the wall clock showed 11:15 p.m. As a marketing manager for a rapidly growing tech startup, business trips like this were a regular part of her life. Amara glanced at the large mirror in the corner of the room. She was still in her full work attire, a dusty rose-colored modest tunic paired with wide-leg black trousers. The matching pashmina scarf was still neatly pinned, though she felt the urgent need to remove it to feel the cool breeze from the air conditioner on her scalp. But before her fingers could touch the pin under her chin, the phone on the nightstand vibrated violently. The vibration felt demanding, as if carrying news that couldn't be delayed for a single second. Her mother-in-law's name flashed on the screen. Amara's heart sank. Eleanor rarely called this late unless something extraordinary had happened. "Hello, Eleanor." Amara's voice was hoarse. "Amara, where are you? How dare you leave your husband all alone?" The voice on the other end exploded immediately, shrieking with a high-pitched tone full of accusation. "Eleanor, please calm down. What's wrong with Preston? I'm in Chicago for a work conference. I'll be back tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow morning, you say? By tomorrow morning, your husband might be a corpse." Eleanor's dramatic sobs interrupted Amara's explanation. Preston collapsed. "Amara, he was vomiting blood. His body went cold. He kept calling your name, but his wife was too busy chasing money in another city. Come home now, or you'll regret it for the rest of your life for being a wicked wife who abandoned her husband on his deathbed." The call was disconnected abruptly. Amara's body trembled violently. All the joints in her legs felt weak in an instant. Horrible thoughts began to flood her mind. Preston, her husband, who for the past 3 months had often complained of dizziness and nausea, was now reportedly in critical condition. Guilt pierced Amara's chest like 1,000 needles. She did feel guilty for being so busy lately, but she did it all to support the family finances because Preston's contracting business was on its last legs. Without a second thought, Amara grabbed her handbag. She didn't even have time to change her clothes or remove the remnants of her fading makeup. She adjusted her hijab in the mirror, making sure no stray hairs were showing, even though her hands were shaking uncontrollably. She did a quick checkout and ran towards the parking garage. Inside the car, Amara prayed continuously. The journey from Chicago to her mother-in-law's house in a suburb outside Detroit, which usually took over 4 hours, felt like an eternity that night. She pushed her white sedan above the speed limit, ignoring the exhaustion that weighed on her eyelids. Throughout the drive, tears streamed down Amara's cheeks. She recalled their marriage, which had only lasted 4 years. Preston was a gentle man, though sometimes too obedient to his mother. Amara always tried to be a good daughter-in-law, giving Eleanor extra money each month and never arguing, even when she was often criticized for her busy work schedule. Now, the thought of losing Preston was driving her nearly insane. Around 1:30 a.m., Amara entered the old subdivision where her mother-in-law lived. The streets were deserted. Only a few streetlights flickered dimly. But something was odd as she approached the cul-de-sac where Eleanor's house was located. Several cars were parked a short distance from the house, as if deliberately trying not to block the front. Amara didn't think much of it. Her mind was focused on one thing: Preston. She parked her car haphazardly in front of the old iron gate of the house. However, the scene that greeted her was highly unusual for a home in mourning or experiencing a medical emergency. The front of the house was pitch black. No porch light was on. There was no sound of crying, no ambulance, and the large oak front door was shut tight. There was only a dim light seeping from the gaps in the side windows, which were covered with thick curtains. Amara got out of the car, hurrying. Her breath was ragged, her chest tight with a mixture of fear and confusion. Just as her hand was about to knock on the main door, a small but strong hand pulled her arm from the darkness of the porch corner. "Shh, Amara, don't go in the front," a voice she recognized well whispered. Amara turned to find Daisy, Preston's youngest sister, standing there with a pale face and swollen eyes. Daisy was wearing simple house pajamas and looked terrified. "Daisy, why are the lights off? Where's Preston? Hasn't the ambulance arrived? We need to get him to the hospital now," Amara said with an urgent tone, her voice nearly breaking into a sob. Daisy shook her head quickly, her tears falling. "Amara, please listen to me. Preston's fine. I mean, he's not sick like Mom said." Amara was stunned. "What do you mean?" She said he was vomiting blood. Daisy glanced nervously towards the front door, as if afraid someone inside would hear them. "It was a lie, Amara. It was all just a trick by Mom to force you to come home tonight. She knew you were out of town, so she used that excuse so you would panic and so what they wanted would happen." "What do they want, Daisy? Stop being cryptic." Amara started to feel anger rising in her chest, displacing the sadness that had dominated her moments before. Instead of answering, Daisy pulled Amara's hand, guiding her along a side path next to the house, which was overgrown with Eleanor's lush decorative plants. They tiptoed towards the living room window on the side. The window was slightly ajar, leaving a gap of about an inch, enough to let sounds from inside seep out and for an eye to peek in. "Amara, look for yourself, but please, don't scream. Don't go in the front right now. If you go in and cause a scene, Mom's plan will succeed," Daisy whispered, her voice trembling violently. Amara brought her face close to the gap in the window. At first, her vision was blurry from the tears that still welled in her eyes. But after she wiped them with the end of her pashmina, her world seemed to crumble in an instant. Inside, the living room, usually cluttered with old newspapers, had been transformed. There were simple decorations of white and gold satin fabric covering the walls. In the center of the room sat two people on wooden chairs, adorned with fresh white roses. The scent of the roses even drifted outside, piercing Amara's nose with the nauseating aroma of betrayal. Preston, the man who was supposedly on his deathbed, sat there. He didn't look sick at all. His face was fresh, his hair slicked back, and he was wearing a cream-colored tuxedo, complete with a matching bow tie. Beside him sat a woman Amara knew all too well. Jessica, Preston's ex-girlfriend from college, who over the past year had often sent her husband messages under the guise of business consulting. Jessica looked elegant in a modern white cocktail dress and heavy makeup. In front of them, a middle-aged man in a suit, whom Amara assumed was some kind of officiant, was holding Preston's hand. To the right, Eleanor sat with a radiant face. Her smile was so wide that the wrinkles on her face looked like lines of victory. "I, Preston, take you, Jessica, to be my wedded wife." Preston's voice was loud and firm, with no hint of hesitation. The same voice that used to whisper promises of loyalty to Amara every morning was now being used to formalize his betrayal right before her eyes. "You may now kiss the bride," the officiant declared. "Congratulations." Eleanor and a few witnesses from Jessica's family who were present cheered enthusiastically. Amara's body froze. The cold night air that touched her skin seemed to seep into her very bones. She felt like she was watching a horror movie in which she was the victim being laughed at. Her heart pounded so hard her ears rang. Was this her husband? The man for whom she worked overtime to pay off his debts? The man who, just 3 hours ago, was reported to be dying. Amara was about to push the window open, to scream as loud as she could and claw at the shameless faces inside, but Daisy's hand held her back again. Daisy whispered something that snapped Amara out of her momentary rage. "Not now, Amara. Mom has people watching the front. If you go in and make a scene, she'll take pictures of you while you're emotional. Then spread the story that you're an abusive wife who has long neglected a sick husband. She wants to create a reason to make this second marriage seem justified because you're not a good wife. She wants you to look like the bad guy so you can be divorced without getting any of the assets." Amara took a deep breath. The oxygen entering her lungs felt like fire, but she forced herself to remain calm. Daisy was right. Confronting them now would only make her fall into the trap Eleanor had so carefully set. They wanted a drama where Amara was the antagonist. Amara clenched her fists at her sides. Her dusty rose tunic now felt like battle armor. She reached into her bag, took out her smartphone with hands that no longer trembled with fear, but with controlled fury. She aimed her phone's camera right at the gap in the window. She started recording. She recorded her husband's face as he kissed Jessica's hand. She recorded Eleanor's satisfied laughter as she hugged her new daughter-in-law. She recorded the faces of the officiant and the witnesses. The video was 3 minutes long, but for Amara, it was 3 minutes that erased her entire past and forged a new future. "Let's go, Daisy," Amara whispered coldly. Her voice no longer held any sadness. "Where are you going?" Daisy asked, worried. "I'm going somewhere they can't touch me." "Thank you, Daisy. You saved my life tonight. But remember one thing, never tell them I was here." Amara turned and walked away from the darkness of the side of the house with a firm stride. She got into her car, started the engine as quietly as possible, and slowly left the cul-de-sac without turning on her headlights until she reached the main road. Inside the car, she saw her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her eyes were red, but her gaze was sharp. "You want me to be the downtrodden wife?" Amara muttered to herself, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "You're dead wrong. You just handed me the deadliest weapon to destroy you." Amara grabbed her phone, searching for a name in her contacts. Mr. Evans, attorney at law. She sent a short text message, ignoring the fact that it was almost 3 a.m. "Mr. Evans, I have proof of an illegal polygamous ceremony and falsification of a medical emergency. I want to file for divorce and a total asset freeze tomorrow morning. Please set up a meeting for 9 a.m. That night, Amara did not go back to the home she shared with Preston. She drove her car back towards the city, to a different, safer hotel. She needed space to strategize. The pain in her heart was still there, throbbing every time the image of Preston in that tuxedo appeared, but Amara refused to be broken. If they could play act with a wedding in the living room, then Amara would ensure her final stage was in a courtroom, where she would be the winner. She smoothed her hijab, which was slightly askew from the night wind, took a deep breath, and stared straight ahead. The war had just begun, and this time, she would not let anyone trample on her dignity again. The morning sun pierced through the gaps in the dining room curtains, reflecting off the surface of the neatly set wooden table. Amara stood motionless in front of the stove, stirring a pot of oatmeal with rhythmic, mechanical movements. She wore a comfortable home dress made of soft, light blue cotton with a loose fit, complete with a matching hijab that draped over her chest. Her appearance was simple and calm, a stark contrast to the storm raging inside her head. She had only slept for 2 hours at the hotel before deciding to return to this house at 5 a.m. Making sure her tracks were covered, she had to be the best actress today. She had to counter the theatrical stage built by Eleanor and Preston with a performance that was far more convincing. The sound of the front gate sliding open and the roar of a car engine she knew all too well broke the silence. Amara's heart pounded, a traumatic reflex she immediately suppressed. She took a deep breath, letting the savory aroma of cooking oatmeal fill her lungs to calm her tense nerves. She heard the front door open, followed by the sound of shuffling footsteps, an incredibly poor attempt by her husband to act helpless. "Amara, you're back?" Preston's voice was weak, hoarse, and filled with falseness. Amara turned off the stove, turning her body with a facial expression she deliberately made to look swollen and full of anxiety. She ran towards Preston, who had just entered the living room. The man looked disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, and his eyes red from lack of sleep, perhaps from exhaustion after the wedding night he celebrated on his wife's suffering. "Oh, honey, my God, Preston!" Amara rushed over, grabbing Preston's arm and helping him sit on the sofa. She touched her husband's forehead with the back of her hand. "Cold?" Of course it was cold. This man didn't have a fever. "Why did you come home alone?" "Eleanor said you were vomiting blood and in critical condition last night." "I was going crazy on the road. Why was your phone off all night?" Preston leaned back on the sofa, closing his eyes while massaging his temples. "I'm sorry, honey. My phone died, and I was too weak to find a charger." Last night was really bad, but after Mom gave me a massage and some herbal tea, I felt a little better. I forced myself to come home because I knew you'd be worried sick." Amara knelt beside her husband, hiding the glint of hatred in her eyes by looking down. As they were so close, Amara's sense of smell caught something that made her stomach turn. Behind the scent of menthol rub deliberately applied to Preston's neck, she could smell the faint, lingering fragrance of white roses and a sharp woman's perfume. Jessica's perfume. The betrayal was so real that Amara felt like spitting in the face of the man who had been her companion for 4 years. "I'm so glad you're feeling better. I've made oatmeal and some warm ginger tea. You rest, okay? I'll take care of everything," Amara said with a trembling voice, pretending to hold back tears. "You're not mad that I made you panic?" Preston opened his eyes, looking at Amara with a gaze that feigned guilt. But Amara knew it was just fear that his secret would be exposed. Amara shook her head slowly, her fingers adjusting the edge of her hijab. "How could I be mad at someone who's sick? Preston, I was just scared of losing you. Eleanor sounded so terrified on the phone last night. She must have been devastated seeing you like that." "Yeah. Mom was really worried about me. She even called a spiritual healer because she thought someone had put a curse on me." Preston lied so fluently, as if lying had become as natural as breathing for him. "Maybe from now on, I'll stay at Mom's house more often, so she won't worry, at least until I'm fully recovered." Amara smiled faintly, a smile Preston interpreted as compliance. But it was the smile of a hunter watching her prey walk into a trap. "Of course, honey. Anything for your health. I'll pack a small bag with your clothes later. So, if you need to go to your mom's again, everything will be ready." Preston looked relieved. He gently stroked Amara's head, a gesture that used to make Amara feel loved, but now felt like the disgusting touch of a leech. Preston then went to the bathroom to clean up. As soon as the bathroom door closed, Amara's expression changed completely. Her face, which had been full of affection, turned as cold as ice. She quickly got up and walked over to the shirt Preston had taken off and draped over the back of the sofa. With quick, silent movements, Amara checked the shirt's pockets. She found a small receipt from a jewelry store dated yesterday afternoon for the purchase of a pair of wedding rings. Not only that, but on the inside fold of the collar, there was a light-colored foundation stain that contrasted sharply with the dark color of Preston's shirt. Amara took out her phone, photographed the receipt and the foundation stain as additional evidence. Her hands no longer trembled. Every piece of evidence she found only strengthened her resolve. She placed the shirt back exactly where it was. In her heart, Amara swore that her willingness to pack a bag for Preston wasn't because she supported him staying at his mother's house, but because she wanted the man to slowly and permanently leave this house. She returned to the kitchen, pouring the ginger tea into a mug with a steady hand. In her head, she was already calculating which assets she needed to secure before the divorce papers were filed. The joint savings account, the deed to the house, for which half of the down payment had come from Amara's inheritance, and the car, whose payments she had finished paying off. The foolish and submissive Amara Reed had died at her mother-in-law's window last night. All that remained was a woman counting down the days to her freedom while spoon-feeding her enemy with feigned affection. The morning air in the city center felt much more suffocating than usual. Despite the powerful air conditioning in the industrial chic cafe, Amara sat in the most secluded corner, her back to the large window overlooking the busy street. She wore a professional pantsuit that gave her an air of authority and protection, a long, navy blue blazer paired with a matching pleated skirt. A silver silk square hijab was wrapped neatly around her head, giving a sharp definition to her jawline, which was now set firmly. Across from her, a middle-aged man in a gray suit, Mr. Evans, was staring at a tablet screen with a deeply furrowed brow. The low hum of conversation and the clinking of spoons from other tables became a distant backdrop as Mr. Evans replayed the video Amara had recorded 2 nights ago. The light from the tablet screen reflected off the lawyer's glasses, capturing the silhouette of Preston reciting his vows. Amara just stared at her cold cup of coffee, her fingers, still wearing the wedding ring that now felt like a hot shackle, twisting a napkin in her lap. "This video is very strong evidence, Miss Reed." Mr. Evans's voice broke the silence. He placed the tablet on the table with a careful motion. In this country, a second marriage ceremony, even if not legally binding, performed without the consent of the legal spouse, is a serious breach of trust. This isn't just infidelity, it's a calculated act of bigamy in spirit, if not in law. Coupled with the fraudulent medical emergency to lure you out of town, we have a very strong case. Amara nodded slowly, her voice steady despite a faint tremor. I don't just want a divorce, Mr. Evans. I want to make sure he and his mother don't get a single penny of my hard-earned money. The house we live in was purchased with inheritance money from my parents, which I renovated with my own salary. The car is also in my name, but I know there's a joint savings account that he has been managing for the operational costs of his failing contracting business. Mr. Evans jotted something down in his planner. We have to move quickly before they realize, I suggest you immediately transfer the funds from the joint account to a personal account your husband is unaware of. Regarding the house, since it was funded by an inheritance with clear documentation from your side, its position is strong enough not to be categorized as purely marital property to be split 50-50, especially with this evidence of betrayal. Amara took a brown folder from her bag and slid it towards Mr. Evans. Inside were copies of the house deed, the last 3 months of bank statements, and the photo of the wedding ring receipt she found in Preston's shirt. I also found evidence that he's been regularly transferring small amounts of money to an account under the name Jessica Anderson. The amounts are small each time, but frequent. It seems the money he claimed was for construction materials was actually used to support her. Excellent. We can use that to argue financial abandonment or misuse of shared assets, Mr. Evans said with a thin, satisfied smile. However, Miss Reed, I must warn you, once this petition is filed, they will fight back. Your mother-in-law sounds like the type who won't hesitate to use slander. Amara adjusted her hijab, ensuring the pin by her ear was secure. Let them, sir. The more they slander me, the more evidence of their poor character we can present in court. For now, I will continue to play the part of the devoted wife. I've even prepared a bag for him because he plans to stay at his mother's more often, under the guise of recovery. After the meeting ended, Amara didn't leave right away. She sat quietly for a moment, staring at her phone screen which displayed a text message from Preston. Honey, my head is spinning again. I think I'll stay at Mom's tonight. Sorry I can't be there to take care of you. Amara replied with cold, steady fingers. That's okay, honey. Take care of yourself. I've already packed your clothes in the black backpack. Get plenty of rest. She put her phone away and stood up. Her steps felt lighter as she walked out to the parking lot. Amara knew that every piece of clothing she put in that bag wasn't just for an overnight stay. It was the first step in slowly removing Preston from her life. She would let her husband enjoy his illegal honeymoon in a false sense of security, right before the legal storm she was brewing struck without warning. Amara got into her car, started the engine, and began driving towards the nearest bank. Today, she would make sure that one by one, the financial lifelines for the trader were severed. That afternoon, heavy clouds hung low over the Detroit suburbs, creating a gloomy atmosphere that suited the charade inside the house. Amara stood in front of the large wardrobe in the master bedroom, her hands deftly folding several of Preston's shirts and pants. She wore a knee-length tunic in a milky brown color paired with black culottes. A comfortable jersey scarf framed her face, giving the impression of a wife busy with household chores, unconcerned with her appearance. Yet, behind that calm facade, every fiber of clothing she touched felt like a pile of trash she wanted to throw into an incinerator. Preston emerged from the bathroom, walking with a deliberately dragged gait. One hand held his side while the other massaged his forehead. His acting would have been impressive if Amara didn't know the truth. The man had just spent 2 hours on his phone, which Amara was certain was for exchanging loving messages with Jessica, before finally emerging with a manufactured pale face. Honey, I've packed all your clothes in the backpack. There are vitamins, pain relievers, and a thick jacket too. It gets cold at your mom's at night, right? Amara said in a soft voice, almost a whisper full of concern. She turned and looked at her husband with eyes she made to look teary. Preston sat on the edge of the bed, taking a forced, heavy breath. Thank you, Amara. I feel bad for constantly troubling you. I should be the one taking care of you, but instead, I'm the one going back to my mom's to be looked after. Don't say that. It's my duty to make sure you get the best care. If you feel more comfortable and heal faster at your mom's, I'm happy to let you go. Besides, she knows what you've needed since you were a child, right?" Amara moved closer, rubbing Preston's shoulder with a very gentle motion, as if her husband were made of fragile glass. Preston took Amara's hand and kissed the back of it. Amara felt a wave of immense disgust. However, she forced herself not to pull her hand away. Instead, she responded with a fake, sincere smile. "Oh, by the way, here's a little cash for you. In case you need to buy extra medicine or want to eat something they don't have at your mom's." Amara took a few $100 bills from her tunic pocket and slipped them into Preston's hand. Preston's eyes lit up for a moment, a flash of greed he couldn't completely hide. "You're so kind, Amara. I'm sorry my business is struggling and I have to rely on your money. My money is your money too. The important thing is that you get well soon," Amara replied firmly. In her heart, she laughed bitterly. That money was nothing compared to the tens of thousands of dollars she had already moved from their joint account to her secret account that morning. The money she was giving him now was just bait, to make Preston feel he was still in control and not suspect her financial maneuvers. Shortly after, the sound of a car horn honked from the front gate. It was Preston's cousin, sent by Eleanor to pick him up. Amara helped her husband stand, supporting him carefully all the way to the front door. There, Eleanor was waiting in the car with the window rolled halfway down. The old woman's face was smug. She looked at Amara with a condescending glare, as if Amara were a loser who had just handed over her victory trophy. "Got everything, Preston?" Eleanor asked loudly. "Let's go. Don't stay outside too long, you'll catch a worse cold. Everything's ready at home. Jessica also, the herbal tea from Jessica, our neighbor, is also ready." Eleanor almost slipped up, but she quickly corrected herself with a stiff, small laugh. Amara pretended not to hear the fatal mistake. Instead, she approached the car window and respectfully took Eleanor's hand. "Please take care of Preston. Eleanor, I'm sorry I can't stay over. Work at the office is really piling up. I'll call often to check on him." Yes, just take care of your work. That's what you're best at, isn't it? Making money until you forget to take care of your husband," Eleanor sneered. Amara just looked down, her shoulders shaking slightly, as if she were holding back sadness from the insult. In reality, she was holding back a triumphant laugh. She watched Preston get into the car, carrying the bag of clothes she had picked out for him, clothes she had deliberately chosen so he wouldn't need to return to this house anytime soon. As the car drove away and disappeared around the corner, a drastic change came over Amara. She straightened her back, wiped away the imaginary tears from her cheeks, and stared at the empty street with a gaze as cold as ice. The mask of the submissive wife was cast off with a long, relieved sigh. Amara turned back into the house, locked the door securely, and went straight to her home office. No more oatmeal or vitamins. She opened her laptop and contacted Mr. Evans via video call. "They're gone, sir. The bait has been swallowed whole. They think I'm a fool. Now, please ensure all the temporary asset seizure documents are ready. I want that while they are celebrating on top of my suffering, they realize that the very roof over their heads no longer belongs to them." Amara leaned back in her office chair, staring at her wedding photo on the wall, which now looked like a huge joke. She picked up her phone, disabled the location sharing feature that had been linked to Preston's phone, and replaced it with a tracking app she had secretly installed on his phone earlier that day while pretending to charge it. Now, she could monitor the traitor's every move without getting her hands dirty. That morning, Amara didn't allow herself to wallow in the silence of the now alien house. She woke before dawn, performing her prayers with a different kind of devotion, a plea for strength to get through the days of charade ahead. After she finished, she got ready meticulously. Today, she chose to wear a corduroy long dress in a dark brown that gave her a tough look, paired with a black hijab that draped neatly over her chest. There was no longer any impression of a weak wife. Her reflection in the mirror showed a woman ready to take back what was rightfully hers. Her first agenda item was to visit a notary's office to confirm the ownership status of the house and the commercial storefront that Preston used as his contractor's office. During the drive, her phone buzzed. A notification from her banking app appeared. Transaction failed. Insufficient funds. Amara smiled coldly. It was a notification from the debit card Preston was carrying, a card linked to the joint account whose balance Amara had drained yesterday. Preston must have been trying to pay for something, perhaps a fancy breakfast for his new wife, or an installment on something Jessica had requested. Just 5 minutes later, her phone rang. Preston's name appeared on the screen. Amara took a deep breath, changing her expression to one of concern before answering the phone. "Hello, honey. What's wrong? I just got a notification about a failed transaction. Is there a problem with your card?" Amara started the conversation with a feigned tone of worry. "Yeah, Amara. This is so weird. I'm at the pharmacy trying to buy some extra vitamins and a few things for my mom, but the card was declined. Did you forget to deposit money into the account?" Preston's voice sounded panicked and slightly embarrassed, probably because Jessica was standing next to him, watching him fail to pay. "Oh my God, honey, I'm so sorry." Amara covered her mouth, feigning shock. "I forgot to tell you. Mr. Evans, that friend from my office who knows about finance, said there was suspicious activity on our account. Someone was trying to hack it from out of state. So, for security, I temporarily moved all the funds into a fixed-term deposit that can't be withdrawn from an ATM. I completely forgot you still had that card." There was a moment of silence on the other end. Preston must have been cursing internally. "So what now, Amara? I need cash. Just use the money I gave you yesterday, honey. Make it last for a few days. As soon as I can get to the main bank branch to sort out unblocking it, I'll let you know. Please be patient. This is for the security of our money, after all," Amara said in a voice as sweet and deadly as honey. After hanging up, Amara immediately moved on to the next stage, a mental attack on Jessica. She knew Jessica was the type of woman who cared deeply about her social image. Amara opened her social media account, which she had kept private for a long time. She posted an old photo of her and Preston on vacation, but with a very specific caption. "Thank you for the surprise new asset today, honey. It's true, a house and a future are only secure when held by a legally recognized wife. Your loyalty is my best investment. Number legally married, number secure future." Amara knew Jessica would be secretly monitoring her account. The post was bait to ignite Jessica's jealousy and insecurity. She wanted Jessica to realize that even though she got a living room reception, she would never get access to the luxury she had been seeking from Preston. Sure enough, within a few hours, Daisy sent her a short text. "Things are getting heated here. Jessica is yelling at Preston because he said the money is locked by the bank. Then she saw your post and is now accusing him of lying about his assets. Mom is also stressed because Jessica is starting to demand the new house he promised her." Amara put her phone in her bag with a sense of satisfaction. Her aggressive behind-the-scenes moves were starting to yield results. She then walked into the notary's office with her head held high. There, she signed several important documents to transfer the title of the storefront property back into her name alone, as it had been purchased with her personal funds before their marriage. One by one, Amara was cutting off the financial oxygen supply to the traders. She didn't need to confront them with screams. She would just let poverty and uncertainty do the dirty work for her. As she left the notary's building, the afternoon wind blew against her hijab, and for the first time since the night of the betrayal, Amara felt truly in control of her own life. The chandelier in the main dining room glowed golden, reflecting off the row of porcelain plates and silver cutlery that had been meticulously arranged. Amara stood in front of the large mirror in the living room, ensuring her appearance was perfect for the role she was about to play tonight. She wore a long, premium satin gown in a deep maroon that fell elegantly, giving an impression of luxury yet modesty. A matching silk pashmina hijab was wrapped stylishly around her head, secured with a small, jewel-encrusted brooch on her left shoulder. Tonight was a get-well-soon party for her husband, an event she orchestrated herself, an event she would use as a stage to publicly humiliate her enemies under the guise of kindness. One by one, relatives from Preston's side and a few of their close friends arrived. Amara greeted them with the warmest smile she had ever mustered. The climax was when Eleanor's car pulled up in front of the house. Preston got out with a still-forced, weary gait, while Eleanor walked beside him with a stiff and uncomfortable expression. They were forced to come because Amara had invited the entire extended family. Their absence would only raise suspicion. "Come on, honey, sit here, in the main chair. You're the guest of honor tonight," Amara greeted him with a cheerful tone, deliberately loud enough for Preston's aunts and uncles on the sofa to hear. Preston just gave a sour smile and sat down stiffly. Eleanor tried to take control of the atmosphere. "Amara, Preston really still needs a lot of rest. An event like this seems a bit excessive." "Oh, not at all, Eleanor," Amara countered quickly, adjusting her hijab slightly. "We should be celebrating this miracle. Preston recovered so quickly from the condition you described, vomiting blood and all. It must be because of his 2 devoted wives and your incredible dedication, right?" The sentence was like a subtle slap that silenced Eleanor. Several relatives began to approach, congratulating Preston. Amidst the low murmur of conversation, Amara stood at the head of the table, tapping a spoon against a crystal glass to get everyone's attention. The room fell silent. "Thank you all for coming tonight," Amara began, her voice calm yet commanding. "Tonight is not just about Preston's recovery, but also about loyalty. In this day and age, it's hard to find a man who so fiercely protects the honor of his marriage, even when tested by illness. I am so grateful to have a husband who is honest and hides nothing from me." Amara glanced at Preston, who was now starting to sweat despite the air conditioning. Eleanor seemed busy stirring her soup, not daring to look at anyone. "As a token of my gratitude," Amara continued, "I want to announce something. Since Preston is healthy now, I have arranged for all family assets, from the commercial property to this house, to be managed under a single, professional auditing system. This is for our future, to ensure no money is wasted on unclear expenditures. You agree, don't you, honey?" Preston choked on his drink. All eyes turned to him. In front of his extended family, who highly valued the image of a harmonious family, he had no choice but to nod slowly. "Yes, of course, Amara. That's a great idea." "Wonderful," Amara replied with a victorious smile, "because I've heard so many stories out there about husbands who betray their wives while the wife is out working hard to provide. But I know Preston isn't a lowlife like that. He knows very well that a secret ceremony or polygamy without the legal wife's consent is a path to financial and social ruin. Isn't that right, Uncle?" Amara directed the question to Preston's eldest uncle, a respected retired judge. The uncle nodded firmly, launching into a lecture about how despicable a man who would do such a thing is. Preston and Eleanor sat frozen, as if their chairs had turned to hot coals. The climax occurred when Preston's phone, which he had placed on the table, vibrated loudly. A name appeared on the screen: "Jessica, my love." The phone's light was glaring in the dimly lit dining room. Amara, standing closest, calmly picked up the phone before Preston could reach for it. "Oh, a call from Jessica. Honey, who is she?" "Is this that neighbor from your mom's house who brought you the herbal tea?" Amara asked with deadly innocence. The entire room went silent. Preston looked like he had just seen a ghost. Amara held the phone out to Preston with a steady hand. "Go on, answer it. Don't keep our esteemed guest waiting. Or would you like me to speak on your behalf?" Preston snatched the phone roughly and immediately turned it off, his face crimson with a mixture of shame and suppressed rage. Amara just smiled faintly, smoothed her maroon dress, and invited the guests to continue their dinner. She had successfully planted a seed of immense fear in her husband's heart and shattered Eleanor's pride in front of her own family. That night, it wasn't just stomachs that were full. Amara's thirst for revenge was beginning to be quenched. 3 days after the tense dinner party, Amara stood in the lobby of her office building in a suit that radiated authority. She wore a sharply tailored blazer in a nude color paired with a modest black pencil skirt. A matching silk pashmina hijab was wrapped in a minimalist style, accentuating her face, which no longer showed any trace of sadness. In her hand, she held a folder containing the final draft of the divorce petition that Mr. Evans would file at the courthouse later that afternoon. However, a disturbance she had anticipated appeared before her. Jessica stood near the lobby entrance, her appearance a far cry from the elegance she displayed on her secret wedding night. Her face was haggard, her eyes swollen, and she was wearing a casual outfit that looked like it had been thrown on in a hurry. The moment her eyes landed on Amara, Jessica strode forward, her emotions overflowing, ignoring the stares of other employees who were beginning to take notice. "Amara, we need to talk." Jessica's voice was shrill, attracting the attention of the security guard in the corner. Amara didn't back down an inch. Instead, she calmly adjusted her shoulder bag, her face remaining neutral, as if the woman in front of her were just a passing breeze. "If this is about work, please make an appointment with my secretary. If it's about something else, I don't believe I have any business with you. Don't act so high and mighty." Jessica closed the distance between them until they were only a few feet apart, her breathing heavy. "You did it on purpose, didn't you? You deliberately locked all of Preston's access to his money. You know we're married. Don't play dumb. Preston said you moved all the money from the joint account. Give it back. It's Preston's right, too." Amara tilted her head slightly, looking at Jessica with feigned pity. "Right? What right are you talking about?" "Preston is sick, Jessica. That's what Eleanor told me. And as his legally recognized wife, in the eyes of the law and the state, I am obligated to secure our family's assets so they aren't misused by parties trying to take advantage of his condition. Why are you the one so panicked about my husband's money?" "Because I'm his wife!" Jessica screamed, losing control. People in the lobby started whispering. Some even took out their phones to record. "We were married legally in front of an officiant, and my family. You're just the wife he doesn't want anymore. Preston married me because he loves me, not for your money." Amara smiled thinly, a calm yet lethal smile. She reached into her blazer pocket and took out her phone, which had been recording since Jessica first called her name. "Thank you, Jessica. Your public confession and the lobby's security camera footage will be very helpful in my legal proceedings." "So, you've just admitted to a marriage ceremony performed without the legal wife's consent, in front of multiple witnesses?" Jessica's face instantly went pale. She realized she had walked right into a trap of her own making. Her explosive anger had just provided the exact confession Amara needed to complete the criminal complaint for adultery and illegal bigamy. You trapped me?" Jessica stammered. "I didn't trap anyone. You came to my workplace and caused a scene," Amara replied, her voice remaining low and elegant. "Oh, and one more thing. If you came here asking for money, I suggest you find a job. Because as of today, the storefront Preston was using for his office has been shut down, and I have the keys. Any assets Preston was using to finance your lifestyle will soon be seized by the court as contested property." Jessica collapsed onto a lobby-waiting chair, her body limp. Her fear of poverty had just become a reality, hitting her harder than any sense of shame. Amara smoothed her hijab, which had been slightly tousled by the draft from the automatic doors, and walked past Jessica without a backward glance. She strode to her car with a confident gait. Inside, she immediately sent the audio recording to Mr. Evans. There was no more nausea or tightness in her chest. Amara realized that every reckless move Jessica made and every lie Preston maintained was just more fuel for their own funeral pyre. Now, she just had to wait for the right moment to watch the makeshift altar they built in that living room collapse, along with the dignity of the people who had betrayed her. That morning, the atmosphere at Amara's home was much busier than usual. 2 medium-sized moving trucks had been parked at the gate since dawn. Amara stood at the front door, carefully supervising the movers. She wore a practical yet commanding outfit, a long olive-green tunic made of thick cotton paired with loose-fitting black denim pants. A black jersey scarf was wrapped practically around her head, allowing her to move freely without worrying about adjusting pins. There was no makeup on her face, only a determined expression that showed her decision was final and unshakable. Amara had spent the previous night sorting through their belongings. She didn't take anything that wasn't hers, but she also wouldn't leave a single item she had bought with her own sweat for the person who had betrayed her to enjoy. The large screen TV in the living room, the leather sofa set she had paid off over a year, the washing machine, and the expensive kitchen appliances all were loaded onto the trucks one by one. Some neighbors peeked from behind their fences, whispering about the unusual scene. But Amara didn't care. She no longer had the energy to maintain the image of a happy family that had been a burden for so long. The phone in her pocket buzzed. A message from Mr. Evans came in. "The official petition has been filed with the Wayne County Family Court this morning. Miss Reed." Summons for Preston and Eleanor Reed will be delivered to Eleanor Reed's address within 1 or 2 business days. The police department has also received the report regarding the alleged illegal marriage ceremony. Amara let out a long, deep breath, a breath of immense relief, as if a massive weight that had been pressing on her chest for years had finally been lifted. She replied to the message briefly, "Thank you, sir. I am just finishing emptying the house now." As the living room began to look bare, Amara walked into the master bedroom. The room that was once filled with sweet memories now felt cold and foreign. She saw their wedding photo still hanging on the wall, a picture of them smiling broadly, unaware of the cruel betrayal the future held. With a calm motion, Amara took down the photo, removed the backing, and took out the picture. She tore it in half, right down the middle, separating her image from Preston's. She threw the piece with Preston's image into the trash can, while she kept her half as a reminder of the past she had overcome. An hour later, the house was nearly empty. Only a few of Preston's personal belongings, which Amara had deliberately left behind, remained: a few pairs of old shoes, stacks of newspapers, and a wardrobe now containing only worn-out clothes that Preston hadn't taken to his mother's house. Amara walked to the now empty dining table. On its clean wooden surface, she placed a thick, sealed brown envelope. Inside was not only a copy of the divorce petition, but also a formal notice to vacate the premises due to the property ownership being reverted solely to her name. As a final touch, she included a printed screenshot from the video of Preston and Jessica's secret wedding. Before leaving, Amara called a locksmith she had arranged for earlier. She had all the locks on the front door, the side door, and the gate replaced with a digital locking system that could only be opened with a secret code or her fingerprint. She wanted to ensure that when Preston or Eleanor came to collect the remaining items, they would realize they were no longer the owners of this place. They had to feel what it was like to be a stranger in a place they thought they could control. The sun was getting hot as Amara locked the gate for the last time. She stood for a moment, looking at the house that had been a silent witness to her struggles. No tears fell. Her heart was too dry to cry for a man who didn't even have the courage to be honest. She got into her car, adjusted her seat, started the engine, and drove away from that street without once looking in the rearview mirror. To her, that house was no longer a home. It was just an empty building, just like Preston's promises, which were now meaningless. Amara's destination was now singular: the court, where she would deliver the final verdict on the traitors who thought they had won at her expense. The white marble floors of the Wayne County Family Court felt as cold as ice under Amara's feet. That morning, she chose to wear a charcoal gray pantsuit that gave off an air of professionalism and authority. A navy blue voile square hijab was wrapped neatly around her head, providing an elegant contrast to her outfit. Beside her, Mr. Evans walked calmly, carrying a leather briefcase filled with the ammunition they were about to deploy. Amara didn't glance once at the crowd in the waiting area as they walked to the mediation room. There, a predictable scene awaited them. Preston sat in a waiting chair, looking much thinner and more haggard, wearing a wrinkled button-down shirt that seemed too big for him. Beside him, Eleanor sat with an air of attempted arrogance, though her eyes betrayed extreme anxiety. Surprisingly, Jessica was there too, standing a short distance away, as if wanting to assert her involvement in the matter. As soon as she saw Amara, Eleanor shot to her feet, her face red with explosive anger. "You ungrateful witch!" Eleanor shouted, ignoring the stares of those around them. "You locked up the house, drained the bank account, and left your sick husband without a penny. Where is your conscience, Amara? Have you gone crazy over money?" Amara stopped directly in front of her mother-in-law. She didn't respond with a raised voice. Instead, she looked at Eleanor with a calm, intimidating gaze. "We can talk inside, Eleanor. The mediator is waiting. Don't embarrass yourself in public if you have any dignity left." They all entered the small, stuffy mediation room. A middle-aged male mediator sat at the head of the table, asking all parties to be calm, and began the session by giving Preston the opportunity to speak. With a trembling voice, crafted to sound as pitiful as possible, Preston began to spin his narrative. He accused Amara of being a selfish wife who abandoned him during a critical medical condition for the sake of marital assets. He even asked the mediator to dismiss the divorce petition and demand that Amara restore all access to the assets she had stolen. "I was sick, sir," Preston said, looking at the mediator with a pleading face. "My wife was busy emptying our home while I was fighting to recover at my mother's house. This is truly mental abuse." Eleanor chimed in with a string of other slanders, claiming Amara had been cheating for a long time and was looking for an excuse to get a divorce. Jessica, sitting in the corner, nodded occasionally, trying to reinforce the narrative that Amara was the guilty party. For nearly 15 minutes, Amara sat in silence, her hands clasped on the table, listening to every lie with extraordinary patience. "Are you finished?" Amara asked in a flat tone once Eleanor ran out of breath. Amara then signaled to Mr. Evans. The lawyer took out a laptop from his bag and turned it towards the mediator and the opposing party. "Mr. Mediator, before we discuss further who abandoned whom, I would like to show you the reason why my client, Miss Reed, decided to take these drastic measures." Amara pressed play on the screen. Instantly, a crystal-clear audio recording filled the room. The video showed the side window of Eleanor's house, where Preston looked perfectly healthy, wearing a tacky tuxedo and shaking hands with an officiant. The sound of Eleanor shouting, "Congratulations," in the video echoed sickeningly in the quiet mediation room. Preston's face turned deathly pale. His mouth hung open, unable to utter a single word. Eleanor, who had been so vocal moments before, froze, her eyes wide as she stared at the screen. In the corner, Jessica looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole as she saw her own face, clearly recorded, kissing Preston's hand during the illegal ceremony. This video was taken on the same night that Eleanor called me and said Preston was on his deathbed, vomiting blood, Amara said, her voice now as cold as a blade. "So, who exactly was sick here? Who committed medical fraud to cover up an illegal secret marriage? And who truly abandoned the sanctity of our marriage?" The mediator shook his head as he looked at the irrefutable evidence. He stared at Preston with a look of disdain. "Mr. Reed, are you aware that participating in a marriage ceremony, even one not legally recognized, while still legally married to another person, can have severe legal consequences?" Preston tried to defend himself, his voice stuttering. It was just a charade to make my mother happy, sir. I wasn't really—" "Enough, Preston." Amara cut him off sharply. She stood up, smoothing her gray blazer with an elegant motion. "Don't add to your sins with more disgusting lies. Mr. Mediator, I don't think this mediation will result in any reconciliation, because there is nothing to reconcile from a planned betrayal. I want this case to proceed to trial for a final divorce decree, and I will also be pursuing criminal charges against my husband and his new partner for their actions." Amara walked out of the mediation room without waiting for a response. She ignored Eleanor's hysterical calls, which had now turned into pleas for forgiveness. As she walked out into the courthouse lobby, Amara adjusted her navy blue hijab, breathing in the fresh air from the open door. She felt truly free. She had exposed their lies in the place they feared most, and now she just had to wait for the judge's gavel to seal the total destruction of the life they had built on her suffering. 3 months had passed since the storm of betrayal was revealed through the gap in a living room window. This morning, the sky was exceptionally clear, as if celebrating the justice that was about to be served. Amara walked gracefully into the courthouse corridor, wearing a long, off-white dress paired with a delicate matching lace cardigan. A champagne-colored silk pashmina hijab was wrapped impeccably around her head, fastened with a small, sparkling gold wing-shaped brooch. Her appearance today symbolized the purity of her intentions and the triumph of a spirit that had navigated a deep valley of suffering. In the main courtroom, the atmosphere was silent as the judge entered. Amara sat in the petitioner's chair, her back straight and her gaze fixed forward. On the other side, Preston looked broken. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair was unkempt, and his eyes remained downcast, avoiding eye contact with anyone. Behind him, Eleanor sat with a face that seemed to have aged 10 years, devoid of the arrogance or hateful glare she usually displayed. Jessica was nowhere to be seen. Rumor had it she had left Preston the moment she realized he no longer had access to the wealth she had coveted. The presiding judge began to read the lengthy verdict with a solemn and authoritative voice. Each sentence spoken was like a hammer blow, shattering one by one the lies Preston's side had constructed. The judge declared that based on the video evidence, witness testimony, and admissions during mediation, it was proven legally and convincingly that Preston had engaged in an act of bigamy in spirit and had committed psychological and financial fraud against the petitioner. The court hereby grants the petitioner's request for divorce in its entirety. The judge's voice echoed in the courtroom. It is ruled that the marital home and the commercial storefront property are the sole and absolute property of Amara Reed, as they are proven to have originated from premarital assets and independent income, with ownership documents legally in the petitioner's name. A compensatory award for emotional distress and punitive damages is levied against Preston Reed in the amount of $50,000 to be paid immediately. The sound of the judge's gavel striking 3 times marked the end of Amara's status as Preston's wife. Amara closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in air that now felt truly clean in her lungs. There was no over-the-top cheer of victory, only a profound sense of relief that filled her chest. She had won this war not through dirty tactics, but in the most elegant way a woman of dignity could. After the session concluded, Preston tried to approach Amara as she was leaving. The man's steps were unsteady, his voice hoarse with belated regret. "Amara, please. My mom has nowhere to live now if you take the house. Jessica left me and took what little money I had left. I truly have nothing." Amara stopped walking but didn't turn around. She adjusted her handbag and looked towards the exit. "You still have your health, Preston. The same health you once used to deceive me. Use it to work and support your mother. I didn't take anything from you. I only took back what was mine and the dignity you both tried to trample." Eleanor, who tried to approach as well, could only sob, covering her face with the hem of her worn headscarf. There were no more accusations of her being a wicked wife or curses from her lips. All that remained was regret for having destroyed her own son's future for the sake of greed and baseless hatred. Amara stepped out of the courthouse where Mr. Evans and Daisy were waiting for her with smiles. Daisy immediately hugged her former sister-in-law with tears of joy. Daisy knew that after this, Amara would begin a new, much brighter chapter. Amara looked up at the sunlight touching her face, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. She had proven that betrayal built on suffering could never win against patience, paired with intelligent logic. With a firm stride, Amara walked to her car. She had already made plans to renovate her commercial property into the modest fashion boutique she had long dreamed of. And her house would now be a place of peace, with no lingering scent of lies in any corner. The altar in the living room had been shattered to pieces, but on its ruins, Amara had built a far more solid palace of independence. She drove away from the courthouse, leaving her past in the rearview mirror, and embraced a future that was now entirely in her hands.